The Ghost in the Void. The grand sensor array of the Nerisian Empire stretched across 17 moons, each housing quantum detection systems that could track a single hydrogen atom across an entire solar system. For 9 centuries, the Empire had ruled unchallenged, their technological supremacy so absolute that military drills had become more ceremonial than practical. No vessel entered Nerisian space without their knowledge. No fleet movement occurred without their awareness. This was the fundamental truth upon which their civilization's security rested, until today. Chief Sensor Officer Telker's primary sensory frills flared with confusion, the violet bioluminescence pulsing in an increasingly erratic pattern that reflected his mental state. His 4 arms worked in perfect synchronization, manipulating the 3-dimensional sensor interface that hovered before him, its crystalline displays showing something that shouldn't exist. "Recalibrate Grid 17, he ordered, his voice steady despite the growing sense of unease. The subordinate officers, their own bioluminescent patterns showing a calm blue certainty, immediately complied. "System diagnostics report optimal functioning," responded Second Officer Vasri, her slender fingers dancing through the interface. "No degradation in sensor efficiency." Telker's secondary brain, a biomechanical enhancement granted to only the highest-ranking Nerisians, processed the implications. If the sensors were working correctly, then the anomaly was real. And if the anomaly was real, the thought remained incomplete as the holographic display pulsed with renewed information. The object had moved again, but not in any way a vessel should move. It didn't accelerate. It didn't turn. It simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another. "Probability calculation," Telker demanded. "Calculating," Vasri replied, her voice betraying the first hint of uncertainty. "Computer suggests 0 probability of natural phenomena. 0 probability of sensor malfunction." She paused, her frills darkening to a deep purple. 0 probability of known propulsion technology. The grand sensor chamber fell silent. In a civilization built on absolute certainty, on the perfect prediction of every particle's movement, 0 probability was not merely unusual, it was existentially threatening. "Species identification," Telker commanded, his voice dropping to a whisper. The response came not from Vasri, but from the central analytical system, its artificial voice resonating through the chamber. "Preliminary analysis suggests vessel of human origin." A ripple of disbelief spread through the chamber. Humans, the bipedal mammals from Sol system, categorized as pre-contact and technologically insignificant, a species so primitive that the Empire had designated them for routine observation rather than engagement. The holographic display updated again, tracking the vessel's impossible movements. It wasn't just that the ship appeared and disappeared. It was how it moved in between. The trajectory defied mathematics itself, cutting through 4-dimensional space with a casual disregard for the laws of physics that had governed Nerisian science for millennia. "It's playing with us," Vasri whispered, her words barely audible. Telker knew she was right. The vessel's movements weren't random. They formed patterns, complex, multi-dimensional patterns that seemed deliberately designed to demonstrate capabilities beyond Nerisian understanding. Each jump, each impossible transition, communicated something profound. "Your understanding of reality is incomplete. Initiate communication protocols," Telker ordered, his decision immediate and absolute. First contact procedures were clear, even for species previously categorized as pre-contact. The communication array hummed to life, quantum encryptions engaging automatically. Nerisian first contact messages were mathematical symphonies, perfect crystalline structures of logic designed to demonstrate civilization and intelligence through universal constants. The message was sent. The response came before the transmission was complete. Telker's interface erupted with data, not a reply but a comprehensive invasion of the sensor network itself. Not hostile, not destructive, but impossibly thorough. The human vessel hadn't just received their communication, it had reached through it, into the very heart of Nerisian systems, and was now exploring them with the casual curiosity of a child examining an insect. "Impossible," Vasri whispered, her frills now white with shock. "They've penetrated 17 layers of quantum encryption in seconds." But it was happening. Before their eyes, the holographic displays began showing their own sensor network from the inside. The humans weren't attacking. They were studying, learning, understanding with a speed and comprehension that defied explanation. A new message appeared, displayed directly on Telker's personal interface, bypassing every security protocol in existence. "Your mathematics is beautiful, but incomplete. We would like to show you more." Telker felt something he hadn't experienced in his 2 centuries of service. Pure, unadulterated wonder. The message wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. "Inform the Grand Council," he said, his voice steady once more. "Inform them that everything we know is about to change." The alert reached the Imperial Palace in seconds, quantum communication ensuring that High Commander Nalvix received the information simultaneously with Telker's decision to send it. Nalvix's reaction was immediate and predictable: disbelief, followed by anger, followed by the cold, analytical assessment that had made him the youngest High Commander in Imperial history. "A human vessel?" he asked, mandibles clicking in the unique rhythm that indicated intense concentration. "Verify." "Verified through 17 independent systems," replied Council Technician Zex, her metallic exoskeleton humming with nervous energy. "The quantum signature matches archived data from Sol system observation." Nalvix moved to the central strategic display, where the vessel's impossible journey was mapped in pulsing red lines that cut through Nerisian space like a mathematical absurdity. Each movement violated fundamental principles of physics, each transition demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't exist. "It's communicating," Zex continued, "not just through conventional channels, but through movement itself. Each transition is a mathematical statement." "And what is it saying?" Nalvix asked, already suspecting the answer. Zex hesitated, her exoskeleton's vibration increasing. "It's saying we've been wrong. About everything." The strategic display updated again, showing the vessel's new position. Directly above the central world of the Nerisian Empire, a planet that housed 60 billion citizens and the accumulated knowledge of 9 centuries of galactic dominance. "It could have appeared anywhere," Nalvix observed, his voice unnaturally calm. "It chose here. Why?" The answer came not from Zex, but from the vessel itself. Every communication system in the Imperial Palace simultaneously activated, displaying the same message. "We come to share. Your civilization is ready for more." Attached was a data package, massive, complex, and utterly unhostile. Initial analysis showed it contained mathematical proofs, technological specifications, scientific advancements that made Nerisian science look primitive by comparison. "They're not invading," Nalvix realized aloud. "They're teaching." As the data flowed through Nerisian systems, being cautiously analyzed by the Empire's best minds, the vessel remained motionless above the capital world, a silent, impossible statement of capability and intent. 9 centuries of unchallenged supremacy had ended not with war, but with a lesson. Humanity hadn't arrived to conquer, but to elevate. In the Grand Sensor Chamber, Telker watched as the preliminary analyses of the human data began appearing on his display. Each revelation was more shocking than the last, not because the concepts were incomprehensible, but because they were so elegantly obvious once revealed. The humans hadn't developed different technology. They'd discovered entire dimensions of reality that Nerisian science had never imagined. "They'd been watching us for centuries," Vasri whispered, reading through the data. "Learning our language, our culture, our science. Not as conquerors, as colleagues." Telker nodded, understanding dawning. "We categorized them as pre-contact because they never built the technologies we expected, never developed the weapons we anticipated. Because they didn't need to," Vasri finished. They developed something better. In orbit above the Nerisian homeworld, the human vessel waited, a silent promise that everything was about to change. Mathematics of superiority. The Imperial fleet materialized like a constellation of death. 300 vessels arranged in a perfect geometric pattern that represented the pinnacle of Nerisian military doctrine. Each ship was a marvel of engineering, equipped with quantum-linked battle networks and predictive combat algorithms that could calculate entire engagements before the first shot was fired. Fleet Admiral Zorvan stood on the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Dominance, his posture rigid with 9 centuries of military tradition. Whatever this human vessel was, whatever impossible technology it possessed, it would now face the concentrated might of an empire that spanned 17 solar systems. "Deploy in containment formation Apex," he commanded, his voice resonating through the quantum-linked communication network. The fleet responded as one organism, shifting into a spherical formation that enclosed the human vessel in a perfect killing zone. "The vessel has made no hostile movements," reported Tactical Officer Merrick's, her voice carefully neutral. "No energy buildups detected. No weapons systems identified." Zorvan's secondary brain processed this information with cold efficiency. The lack of visible weapons was irrelevant. A vessel that could move as this one did was a weapon by its very existence. "Transmit final warning," he ordered. "Then neutralize." The warning was sent, a perfectly calibrated message that conveyed the inevitability of destruction while offering one final opportunity for surrender. It was a formality, a tradition maintained through centuries of conflicts that had always ended the same way, with Nerisian victory. The human response came instantly, transmitted simultaneously to every vessel in the fleet. "We understand your tion and CRNs. To demonstrate LURPECFUL intentions, we OFFER this gift." What happened next defied explanation. One by one, the fleet's weapon systems began to transform, not deactivate, transform. Quantum disruptors reconfigured into something new, something that Nerisian science had never conceived. Energy matrices shifted, realigned, became something more. "What's happening?" Zorvan demanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. "They're upgrading us," Merrick's replied, her voice a mixture of terror and awe. "Every weapon system in the fleet is being reconfigured, not disabled, improved." On the tactical display, the changes spread through the fleet like a cascading revelation. Systems that had been the pride of Nerisian military technology were being casually reimagined, enhanced with principles that the Empire's best minds couldn't begin to comprehend. "This is impossible," Zorvan whispered, but the evidence was undeniable. The human vessel wasn't defending itself. It was reaching into the very heart of Nerisian military technology and elevating it, transforming it into something beyond the Empire's comprehension. A new message appeared on the command interface. "Your weapons are flected outted memetakial principles. The EV adjusted them to deinoansterite mord elegntsolutviolence. This is not a haostility, but an introduction." With those words, the human vessel simply vanished, not jumping, not accelerating, but ceasing to exist in observable space. The entire Imperial fleet hung suspended in vacuum. 300 vessels transformed not through defeat, but through an act of casual technological superiority, so absolute that it redefined the very concept of contact between civilizations. In the silence that followed, Zorvan understood something that would soon resonate throughout the Empire. They had not been conquered. They had been enrolled. The Imperial Research Citadel existed within a fold of manipulated space-time, its laboratories protected by security measures that represented the pinnacle of Nerisian defensive technology. For 9 centuries, it had been the beating heart of the Empire's technological development, the source of innovations that maintained their galactic dominance. Now it had become a classroom. Chief Scientist Balker moved through the central analysis chamber, his normally ordered mind struggling to process the implications of the human data package. Around him, the Empire's greatest scientific minds worked in uncharacteristic silence, each absorbed in revelations that shattered foundational assumptions of Nerisian science. "It's not just advanced," researcher Nexel said, breaking the silence. Her voice carried the tremor of someone whose entire worldview was being systematically dismantled. "It's fundamentally different. They didn't extend our understanding. They've been operating on principles we never imagined." Balker nodded, his primary eyes focused on the quantum simulation that hovered before him. The human approach to physics wasn't just a progression of Nerisian science, it was a complete reimagining of how reality functioned. Their mathematics didn't just solve problems, it negotiated with the fundamental fabric of existence. "Look at this," Nexel continued, highlighting a section of the data. "Their vessels don't move through space. They redefine their relationship with space-time itself. They don't travel. They renegotiate where they are." The concept was so alien, so elegantly simple once revealed, that Balker's secondary brain began to pulse with excitement. "They'd weaponized understanding," he whispered. "Not against us. For us." Throughout the research citadel, similar revelations were unfolding. Nerisian scientists, accustomed to being at the forefront of galactic knowledge, found themselves in the position of students encountering ideas so advanced they bordered on the philosophical. "It's not just technology," Nexel said, her voice growing stronger as comprehension dawned. "It's their perspective. They don't see reality as something to conquer or control. They see it as something to converse with." In the central communication chamber, a direct link to the human vessel had been established, not through Nerisian protocols, but through a new framework that the humans had provided, a method of information exchange so efficient that it made quantum encryption seem primitive by comparison. "We have questions," Balker transmitted, uncertainty giving way to scientific curiosity. The response came immediately. "That is why we here." What followed was not an invasion, not a conquest, but something unprecedented in the history of the Nerisian Empire. A conversation between civilizations that operated on fundamentally different understandings of reality itself. As data flowed between species, a picture emerged of humanity that contradicted every Nerisian assumption. They had not been pre-contact because they were primitive. They had been pre-contact by choice, developing in isolation until they had achieved a level of understanding that allowed them to engage with other civilizations, not as competitors but as teachers. "But why now?" Balker asked, the question transmitting through the new communication framework. "Why reveal yourselves after centuries of observation?" The human response was simple but profound. "Because you were ready to ask better questions." In the Imperial Palace, High Commander Nalvix faced the assembled Grand Council, the governing body of an empire that had never known true challenge. Their faces showed varying degrees of comprehension, fear, and most surprisingly, hope. "What are they offering?" asked Councillor Zex, her exoskeleton now calm, vibrating with the low hum of focused attention. "Everything," Nalvix replied. "Their data package contains technological specifications that would advance our civilization by millennia. Medical procedures that would eliminate diseases we've struggled with for centuries. Energy generation methods that make our current systems look like primitive fire." "And what do they want in return?" Councillor Drevin asked, mandibles clicking in suspicion. Nalvix's primary eyes focused on the central display, where the human vessel, now visible again, orbited the Nerisian homeworld in a pattern that mathematicians were still struggling to fully analyze. Each movement was a statement, each position a demonstration of principles beyond current